can we also talk about the impact on the rest of the squad? Because I know he wasn't involved today because of injury, but Martinelli, I think, has impressed a lot of Arsenal fans out there. If Aubameyang was to leave, for example, I'm sure someone like Martinelli or whoever they bring in would relish the opportunity. Never mind the fact they've got Lacazette. Perhaps Pepe can play through the middle, only time will tell. What about during your time, John? I mean, you at Arsenal, why did you leave? Because they were on the cusp of success. But there were also a lot of good players there, including yourself.
Yeah, well, the issue I had was I played a lot of games initially under George Graham, played in the Cup Winners' Cup final. We eventually got beat to Zaragoza in '95 in Paris.
Naeem's goal, right? David Seaman.
Naeem, that's right, yeah. I know Gary might like that one, ex-Spurs as well, but there we are. Last kick of the game, it was Naeem. I was getting ready to take my penalty in the final because I scored my penalty in the semi-final against Sampdoria in Genoa. So I'm ready to take my penalty kick. I'm one of the nominated penalty takers. Next thing, Naeem's beat the world's #1 goalkeeper, David Seaman, at the time. But there we are. And Dennis Bergkamp arrived at the club, who was phenomenal, Dennis. And then what happened was Arsene Wenger partnered up Dennis and Wrighty, Ian Wright, Dennis Bergkamp. They were magnificent. Wrighty was England centre-forward at the time. Dennis was the great Dutch player. And I found my game time a little bit limited, to be honest, and I wanted to play. I was 21 years of age. And to my credit, I didn't want to sit on the bench. I didn't want to train all week and not play. I think you train all week to peak on the weekend. I didn't want to just pick up medals and be a part of things. It's a short career. Mark Hughes, Dean Saunders, Ian Rush were the Welsh strikers, all 10 years older than me. I wanted to be playing for my football club to get into the Welsh setup as well. But I ended up leaving and joining Harry Redknapp at West Ham, which I went on and did ever so well for West Ham, scored a lot of goals when I first arrived at West Ham. But with hindsight, looking back, I was 21. I had 3 years left on my contract. I may well have stayed at Arsenal and sort of saw things out. And Arsene Wenger actually wanted me to stay, offered me a new deal. But I ended up going to West Ham because I wanted to play. That was key for me, to be on the football pitch every week and to rack up them appearances. Didn't want to sit on a bench and just be an unused substitute. I don't see the point in that.
Yeah. I guess it's slightly different from, say, an Aubameyang, because you suspect wherever he goes, he would probably start. But it's a question of wanting to win trophies. So in that respect, do you wish you had stayed at Arsenal? Because when you left, Arsenal were literally on the brink of success under Arsene Wenger. Obviously, Anelka would come in, and further down the line, we would see Henry and all the other great players that have graced the Gunners in the Premier League.
Well, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? You know, at that particular time, you know, who knows? I ended up going to West Ham, and myself and Paul Kitson, we scored a lot of goals. That particular year, we were under pressure. We were down the bottom of the table. Our goals, plus some of the other players, helped West Ham stay up that year. But again, you know, I saw Thierry Henry in the World Cup a few years ago. I was working for the BBC, and Thierry was doing some work. And I said to Thierry Henry, I said, look, Thierry, I said, I thought you were magnificent at Arsenal. Is one of your biggest ever regrets not playing alongside me?
What was his answer?
Yeah, I just laughed. I didn't expect him to say anything else. But no, as I said, with hindsight, I'd have had a doubles winners medal. I'd have been part of the Invincibles. My roommate was Martin Keown. I got to play for 2 years, you know, with that fantastic back four: Dixon, Seedman, Adams, Keown, Winterburn, you know, Wrighty, Bergkamp, you know, Parler, Limpar, you know, Seaman. They're fantastic players at the time. I was very, very young, and it stood me in good stead for the rest of my career, you know, going into that dressing room full of superstars. Merson, of course, as well.
What would your advice be for Pierre Emerick Aubameyang in terms of trophies? Do you think he should stay at Arsenal? If you could have a word with him, what would you be saying to him?
I don't know, to be honest. From an Arsenal, I always look out for my former teammates, you know, the results of my former clubs. I still have a soft spot for Arsenal. I was very young, only 19, arriving there. I would love him to stay personally, but obviously I can't make up his mind. His agent might have several. I would imagine he'd have several options. It's going to be down to him whether he wants to stay in London, whether the package will suit him, whether or not he's money orientated and he go and get more money elsewhere. I don't know how these guys and their agents sort of do their business, but of course I would love it if he could stay, because as I said earlier, I think he would be a huge sort of plus point for Arteta, not just himself, the way he plays, but in terms of enticing other players to come to Arsenal and play with Aubameyang. So that would be the key one for me. I'd love him to stay, but I'm not party in the conversation. I don't know what's going to happen.
I think top players, Adam, players want to play in the Champions League. Are Arsenal going to be in the Champions League next season? I think it's highly unlikely. Can Arsenal win a trophy this season? Well, actually, yeah, they can. They're still in the FA Cup, aren't they? So maybe Aubameyang can pick himself up a trophy by winning the FA Cup. But in comparison with the Champions League, it pales into insignificance. So I think that as happy as Aubameyang is in one way at Arsenal Football Club, because he's a big star there, he enjoys playing there. I think he likes the style of football that Arteta's trying to bring in as well. If Aubameyang is in the game to win trophies, then it's not going to happen in the very near future at the highest level. And by that, I mean competing in the Champions League with Arsenal Football Club.